Dr. Bassell tells us that on Judas's grave marker, the disciples had written, "Our friend." So we've learned that Judas was not a traitor after all. Of course, trying to convince mainstream Christianity of that seems nearly impossible. Many people are so certain about what they believe, there is no room in their lives for the possibility that their understanding may be incorrect. One thing I can be certain about is that just when we think we're certain about something, along comes new information or a new understanding, which destroys traditional ideas and forces us to revise our understanding. The best illustration of this, I suppose, is a favorite analogy. The idea that the earth is flat, or in this morning's example, the idea that Copernicus showed us that the earth was not the center of the universe. For generations, the man believed the earth was flat, that if you sailed too near the edge, you'd fall off, as in the Pirates of the Caribbean. At some point, scientists proved the earth was round, which changed the map-making industry, the exploration industry, and even the tourist industry. Like it or not, man had to undergo an incredible transformation in thought. These transformations continue today. Today's generation walks around with cell phones attached to their ears. News is generated and reported instantly. No longer does one have to wait for the next edition of the newspaper to find out what's going on in the world. No longer does one have to wait until the end of the day to find out what happened at work. Instant messages and email make business transactions take place and gossip spread at rapid speed. I suppose a discussion about certainty versus uncertainty would be incomplete without reference to our lesson on real versus unreal. We know from our lesson in the National Academy of Metaphysics that, simply put, the real is of God's universe, that which is of God, and the unreal is of man's creation. Thus, love, joy, abundance, wisdom, harmony, and the stars, the mountains, the oceans, plants, flowers, are all real because they are of God. The unreal is what man has created through greed, anger, jealousy, envy, hate, selfishness, and shame. And the unreal includes such things as disease and war, for neither is part of God's universe. Another way to look at real versus unreal is spiritual versus temporal or secular, meaning that the spiritual is of God and the temporal is concerned with civil or worldly affairs in a short-sighted sort of way, or secular in that the spiritual considerations have no place in our daily lives. In our meditation, when we center ourselves, it helps to remember that we are spiritual beings looking out over a physical universe. In that way, we remember that what we are is an inseparable part of God, that what we do, how we act, how we treat others, the choices we make, all has an impact on our relationship with our physical world as well as in our spiritual universe. The kindness that we extend today returns to us tomorrow. We try and treat others the way we want to be treated. We don't harm others unless we're willing to suffer that same harm in our own lives. We build thought forms in our universes of abundance, of love, of joy. And as we realize that abundance, that love and joy, we build those thought forms like bricks, thought form by thought form, until we have realized houses of abundance, love, and joy. Those metaphoric houses are what we create by our thoughts. Conversely, we can also choose to build metaphoric houses out of the unreal. We can choose to build a metaphoric house from thoughts of hate, anger, or greed. We can channel all our hate, all our anger, or all our greed into thought forms, which create something very unreal, which we call disease or cancer. There's a Cheerios commercial, which has been shown recently. His father has 6 weeks to prepare for his cholesterol test. Each wishes the other good luck. And at the conclusion of the 6 weeks, the boy says, "You had it easy. All you had to do was eat Cheerios. I had to write a report." I recall that when I was a teenager, I ate as much as I wanted of everything and didn't gain weight. There were no computers, and I rode my bike a lot. I hiked and camped and explored caves when the opportunity permitted. Today, I spend most of my time sitting at a desk, often in front of the computer, and life is much more sedentary. Had I watched that commercial as a teenager, I would have agreed with the boy that writing a report was much more difficult than eating Cheerios. But today, I can see that writing a report is a lot easier than watching my diet, because hunger, or thinking that you're hungry, is a constant temptation, something that a teenager probably doesn't have enough experience with in life at that point. It's funny how our perceptions change as we gain more life experience. We make lots of assumptions in life. We assume the sun will come up tomorrow. The utilities will work consistently. We assume our friends will be there for us. We assume we'll have church on Sunday. And we also learn what not to take for granted. We know there are those on whom we cannot count to perform. We know that when others say they'll do something, it'll be done. Sometimes our results are commensurate with our expectations. Sometimes our results exceed our wildest expectations. And sometimes our results don't even come close to what we expected. The key here is our expectations. Some life philosophies teach that if you don't have high expectations, you won't be disappointed. There's a lot of wisdom in that approach. Certainly, if you've experienced a huge disappointment, you might have learned not to have high expectations, and you may prevent yourself from being disappointed. On the other hand, in our healing unit, Dr. Bissell makes several admonitions about abundance. He reminds us that we work to realize abundance thought form by thought form, like building a wall of bricks. We continue to realize our own abundance by continually creating thought forms of abundance, building one thought form upon another, so that we have a strong foundation which is not subject to doubt or fear that may destroy that for which we've worked so hard and consistently. Doctor makes it very clear that we don't work to overcome lack, but rather we work to realize abundance. That in itself is a huge lesson, that we don't work to overcome lack. Doctor also admonishes us to have large expectations and to make our request very personal. So we must keep both of these ideas in mind, that having expectations may result in our being disappointed. Yet at the same time, if we're in alignment with the universe, and we satisfy the test that it's good for me, it's good for the other person, it doesn't harm anyone, and that it is of God, then we must have high expectations in order to realize our highest good. If John F. Kennedy hadn't expected us to be able to set foot on the moon and created that expectation in every American, that we would successfully send men to the moon and return to Earth, we would probably never have accomplished that goal. Many incredible byproducts came from those space missions, many of which were unexpected. When Dr. Bissell tells us to have large expectations, that, I believe, is what he's talking about. We know that Jesus said, "These and greater things will you do," as if Jesus knew that man is capable of far more than we imagine. Even John Lennon wrote a song about imagining a world transformed, where people love each other unconditionally, without hatred, hunger, illness, or fear.